The Defender. So this was kind of a big deal. I don't think people who didn't watch these shows on Netflix realize how big of a deal this was. At this time, when it came to superhero shows, we didn't really have anything other than the Arrowverse, and the Arrowverse didn't really have the epic crossovers it does now. Like we didn't have Crisis on Infinite Earths and shit the way we do now, you know. And even the Arrowverse shows were starting to get old at this point. But when these Netflix shows came out, they were really good. People loved them way more than the Arrowverse, and they blew up. They had a huge fan base. And so this was like the Avengers of TV, where it just was not something precedent to happen before. It wasn't nearly as exciting as Avengers because because it's like TV more than movies have crossed over before. It's not that uncommon, but the way it was done in this was a much larger scale. We had Luke Cage, Iron Fist, um, Daredevil, all those shows, Jessica Jones, all together in one show, and it was not very good, to be honest. It was kind of disappointing, and I think what that is that it's kind of like Age of Ultron, where you enjoy watching the characters interact again and watching those interactions. In this case, it's the first time, not again, but if you get what I mean, you enjoy watching them interact. Like Iron Fist is a terrible show. It's not good, but his character is fun in this show. He has a great dynamic playing off the fact that these characters don't want to be called superheroes, even though they're clearly superheroes. Um, he has a great dynamic with that. And that's funny. Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, the way they all play off each other is really well. Luke Cage and Jessica Jones have obviously met before, but you know, just seeing her play off of Daredevil's fun too. So those characters really work. But what the issue is in Age of Ultron, the plot was bad and the villain was bad. So this movie ended up being bad. This show ended up being bad, basically, because it's the same principle here. Um, the villain was played by I forget her name, but she was I think it's Charlize Theron. I can't remember, but she was really good in the role, and she did a good performance. But the way it was written was just not very good, and kind of messy, and just the villains just weren't that threatening throughout the show. It's also weird that this show's only 8 episodes when every other Marvel Netflix season is 13 episodes. It's very bizarre how that turned out. And I think it hurt the pacing of the show. And I just, I like seeing these characters interact. But by the time you get to the end of the season, you're just kind of like disappointed because it should have been something more than this show was. And there's a reason that they never made a season 2 of this. Now, granted, I think they might have. I think the idea was they were going to go through a season of each show again and then to come back around and do Defender season 2. But that didn't happen because all the Netflix shows were cut short after Daredevil season 3. I don't know if that was the original plan, but I think that probably was the original plan, and that's just not what happened, unfortunately. But I can see why it didn't happen, though. It just didn't work out the way that you would think a crossover like this would.